I'm going to have so much fun talking about our subject today. We've talked about emotions and how they affect you. We've talked about the types of emotions. But today I'm going to have some fun with you talking about one of the things that we do when some of our emotions are disturbing to us. Sometimes we do it when we're laughing. Can you figure out what I'm talking about? Crying. There are a wide range of emotions that cause crying. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and I think you're going to find this somewhat interesting because of the way people handle crying. Just in the past week, I have probably seen, I'll say several, instances where something happened and somebody cried about it or was tearing up about a particular situation. And guess what somebody else said? What do people usually say when they see you crying? Oh, don't cry. Can I tell you that's probably not the best thing to say to somebody? It would be so much better if, depending the situation and who it is, maybe some words of kindness, but not don't cry. And perhaps to understand what crying is about, how it's affecting us emotionally as well, I think you'll agree with me that saying don't cry is probably not the best thing to do. So let's talk about the types of tears, and then I'd like to talk about the composition of each type of tear. For example, we have something called basal tears. We all have them. That's the part of the tear that keeps your eyes moist. It's not like a tear that's dripping down your cheek, but we all have those tears. They're made of, let me just tell you what they're made of and you'll understand as we go. Primarily of salts, water, a little bit of mucus that keeps the eye from getting too dry so that you can't even blink it. And these salts are made of sodium chloride and potassium chloride. Now, of course, we know that this is what keeps the eye from becoming too dry. These tears are designed by, as I always say, by our Creator. We are wonderfully made. And these tears are designed to protect the cornea of the eye. And we want to do whatever we can to protect the cornea. So that's the first, and that's the tear. Everybody has that tear. Well, if they don't, then they get medication and get eye drops or something to take the place. So basal tears are the tears that keep our eyes moist. Then we have something called reflex tears. Now that could reach a wide range of reasons. A simple one. How many of you had tears in your eyes from peeling an onion or something similar? Yeah, so why do the eyes tear up when you're peeling an onion? Very interesting. Again, we are wonderfully made. Now these tears are very similar to basal tears, but these tears also, under study, have antibiotics in them. Because peeling an onion, for example, is something that's affecting our eyes negatively. So the antibiotics, that helps to fight any foreign objects that might be in the whatever it is that's causing the tearing. Another time, very, very beneficial and purposely designed. So the next tear, this one I find very interesting, and I'm sure you'll understand. This one's called the emotional tear. Interestingly, as I mentioned early on, the emotion could be very broad. It could be tears from sadness, but it could be tears from overjoy. How about if something that has happened in your life that maybe has been something that has been of concern to you, something that you would just, if only this could get done, if only this could happen. And then when it does, your happiness becomes more crying than laughing because of the type of emotion that's involved relative to whatever the subject is. And I find that one very interesting. So when we look at emotional tears, and sometimes they'll be called psychic tears, they contain more proteins than basal or reflex tears. And they, of the three kinds, they are, interestingly, they have stress hormones in them. Okay, if we just look at that aspect of it, for example, knowing that they have stress hormones in them, do you think it's better to hold those stress hormones inside the body? Or do you think that perhaps crying is helping to release some level of stress through releasing those stress hormones? I think you can understand where I'm going with this. Left in the body, those stress hormones could cause some even more emotional stress, because that's what they are. The body desires to rid itself of those hormones, of those stress hormone. And how does it do that? Crying. Do you see why crying is okay at times? So let's look at that in a little more detail. If they're not released, they can actually become toxic in the body. And guess what system they will affect? The immune system. Not to mention have a negative effect on how we feel, our mood, and you're just feeling like, you just feel like you want to burst inside from having those emotions just stored up in you, and you don't want to cry. You know what's interesting? Men think they shouldn't cry. They have emotions that cause crying too. It's okay. Men, you can cry, it's okay. I want to point out something else. There's another type of tear that I think you'll appreciate. You've probably heard them called, what are they called? Little kids are so ingenious at producing this type of tear. Maybe alligator tears, or we could call them, would it be fair to say, fake tears? The tears that you produce and have the ability to produce to get your way, or to get something that you want, and you feel that if you cry about it, you might be able to get farther in meeting your demands. Those tears, interestingly, the composition is more like reflex tears. So if you're crying your fake tears to get something you want, or to try to make a point with mommy or daddy, or your friends, or we'll just call them fake tears. Let's just hope they don't get analyzed, okay? Because that way they'll know that your tears are fake. I always found that always so interesting. But I also want to add this relative to the crying. And I mentioned it earlier when I said, have you had the occasion when you were crying about something? And more often than not, whoever is with you or hearing you will say, don't cry. The other thing that I've noticed that will happen frequently is that others around you are disturbed by your crying and also don't know how to emotionally handle your crying, so they can go to any extreme that might make you feel even worse. So you try to turn off your tears. You try to stop crying, which is doing what? Well, we talked about what it does. It holds those negative and toxic hormones, stress hormones, still inside you. So you, the crying person, will only feel worse. There's a ton more of information on the crying. Perhaps sometime in the future we'll get into some more technical details about it. But for our time together now, the point that I want to make more than anything else is let's try to avoid saying, don't cry. It's okay. It's not okay. That's why we're crying. On the other hand, relatively, the happy tears, the over-exaggerated joy tears. People don't usually say, oh, don't cry. That they might get happy and laugh themselves into crying. Have you ever heard laugh until you cry? Yeah, that's overexcited. But it's fun and it's okay. And it does have a slightly different makeup. And too much held inside can be a little toxic too. But at any rate, the point that I want to make here is crying is okay, unless it's fake tears. But the emotional tears, the basal tears, the reflex tears, it's okay. We'll see you next time.